Hi everyone, this is Dan. The goal of this video is to introduce you to GitHub as a service that can help you and your teams collaborate on code over complex projects, short projects, multiple users. It's just a very useful tool to track different versions of code throughout time and implement changes from multiple people. So without further ado, showing on my screen right now is GitHub. I'm already logged in. Creating an account is free. And you and whoever on your team that's working on the code would need an account to collaborate. So if we look at this kind of website, I'm not following anyone, but there's a bit of a social aspect here that would show up on this feed if you wanted it to. There's a search bar so you can look for other people's projects and codes. Typically, if you're, for example, downloading unique libraries for the Arduino, oftentimes that code is developed and managed in GitHub. You can see here, these are repositories that I'm a part of. 4 of these I've created myself. One of them actually is a repository that we on the mentors team are using to create the code for the final demo. And then you can see other ones that was a teammate in a grad school project, and that's where we collaborated. So this is a really good tool. And it's not necessary that you use it, but it definitely has advantages over storing files in, let's say, Google Drive or Dropbox, or definitely over emailing them to one another. So let's get into it. We are actually, normally, if you're just joining GitHub for the first time, there's a box right here that I've since clicked out of that shows a tutorial. So I've went in and found it ahead of time. It's called the Hello World tutorial. So we're going to pull these off side by side, and I thought it'd be useful for us to just kind of go through it step by step. Because I know personally I'm a very visual learner, and while it's really well written and there's lots of examples, sometimes it's helpful to just see someone do it. If not, and you don't think that's really useful, you really just stop the video and follow the example on your own. So right off the bat, what is GitHub? Like we already talked about, it hosts code, really does version control, and allows multiple people to seamlessly work on the same code together without getting in one another's way. So you're going to learn about the terminology like repositories, branches, commits, pull requests. I've already used repository a couple times. You can think of repository as a project, right? That's pure and simple what it is. Branches are different versions, so that's the terminology they use in this case, but everyone starts on a common branch, and then they peel off into different branches as they start working on different aspects of the code or tweaking things. And then any changes to those branches are called commits. You're basically saving a version of it. And then pull requests are requests from a team member to an admin or an administrator of the group saying, hey, I have this branch off to the side of the main, I'll call it a trunk, and I would like you to do maybe a peer review and then pull my branch, my unique code, my unique edits back into the main trunk, the main master branch. And because of that, now anyone else doing starting at that point in time and creating a branch would have all your edits. But they could go through a peer review process before they become master branch material, if you will. But we'll get into that. We'll show an example. No coding necessary. Yeah, so in this simple tutorial, all we're going to be really doing is editing a text file, and maybe we'll do a future video where we show this with Arduino code and how that works. All right, so first thing, we're going to create a repository. There's a couple ways to do it. There's this new button here that works. There's also, I think if you go up here, new repository, so I'll just either one. All right, so I'm the owner. Maybe you have multiple accounts, but I've never had to use that. And we're going to just follow this example verbatim. So, hello world. Demo video. Now I'm going to set this to private. I'm sure if you search hello-world, you'll find a bunch of example repositories that people have committed or created. just on GitHub. So private is nice, especially if you're working on something for your project, right? You don't want someone else from a competing team perhaps coming in and being able to see all your code. Now they won't be able to change it, right? Because all requests for incorporating edits go through the pull request system, but they would be able to see maybe you want a competitive advantage. So I'm going to choose private. And then I'm not importing an existing repository. That's if there's different servers and services out there that use the Git format, GitLab, as opposed to GitHub, for example. So let's say you had something on GitLab and you're moving to GitHub. That's what this step is for. But for us, we're creating something from scratch. So we're going to use check this box. Create that repository. All right, so here we go. It is created. Okay, so what's this window? So first of all, here's me. I'm the user. I'm the owner. I created this, so that's why it says D717AN and hello world. The lock icon means it's private, and it's also put up there. I'm watching it, right? So let's say I imported other people to help me work on this, my team. It would show up. Any changes to that would show up in my feed, right? And people you follow here. So the reason for that is because typically if you're a developer, you're probably working on many different repositories at any one point in time. So you can choose which ones. Maybe one is static and you really don't care about it, or so that's what this feature's for. You can also star it or unstar it, no problems. And this is showing just how many forks and stuff there are. Well, rather forking it is let's say this is someone else's repository and you want to start where they left off. You can fork it, and it would create a copy at that point in time of it. And then at that point in time, it's completely yours. You can do your own branches and things. But that's for another video. All right, initial commit. That initial commit is I created the repository, right? That is the first point in time of this code, of whatever's on here. So that's the one commit. It's got one branch. That branch is the default. It's always called master. You can see it's defaulted there. You can always change that in settings, but that's just typically what people do. You can upload files, you can create new files, you can clone or download. We'll get into that probably in a future video when we talk about using this with Arduino files. But for now, we are just going to be editing the one file that is in this, and that is readme.md. This is a very typical file that's found in almost every single repository, and it's just used to present a README. It shows all the text here. Maybe if I go find another example here, if I just explore this, no, wasn't there. Let's see if I can find a good example. Deep learning for AI or CNNs, right? So this was an example, right? This is the README. This is a much longer README. It's just a big text file. And this was a homework assignment for a class, right? So you can see I've got pictures in here explaining to the teacher, hopefully why I should get a good grade, right? So it can be quite long, but for us, right now, it just says hello world, the name of the repository, and the content I typed in at the beginning, which was just demo video. So our tutorial is going to go through right now and create a branch where we are modifying this, and then we're going to do a pull request, pull it back in, and show all those processes. All right, so first thing, the tutorial shows this helpful little diagram for what a branch is, right? So the master branch, that's default, that's ground truth, that's your safe code. That's if you're deploying this to the project, you always want your master branch to be healthy, no bugs, or if there are bugs, you're always fixing them. But the master branch is the healthiest branch of your project. So creating a new branch, let's say my boss created this, or my team lead created this master branch, and I'm a member of the team, and I've been assigned a problem to fix. So I would create a branch in this blue, darker blue line here, right? And that creates it takes whatever at this point in time, if X here is time, it takes a copy of this, and I can work on this completely separately from the master branch or other branches, if you imagine other team members working out here in space, right? I can make my own changes, and then I can submit a pull request. And you see this icon here, right? The left bar represents commits on the master branch, right? And then the right bar here is me out here working on my own branch, saying, hey, take my changes, and I think they're ready, or I'm ready to start the discussion of pulling them back into the master. I think I'm ready for us to pull them into our best branch, right? And then what's important to see here is with each of these dots representing a commit, this doesn't have to be your final code. And actually, GitHub has within it the ability to track comments per line, even if you want to get that deep and detailed, and allows you to iterate a little bit, right? Because nothing's ever perfect the first time around, so you can iterate and comment and track it all in time before saying, okay, yep, everyone agrees this is the version we want to pull in. And it's all reversible too, right? Because it's all tracked on the server, and you can always go back and see what changes were done where and reverse anything. So it's very forgiving. But at this point in time, through all the comments, the admin or the team lead was saying, okay, yep, we're good. We all agree we're safe here. Let's merge it back into master. And from this point on, if anyone started to branch off master, they would get all of your changes. And I like this discussion because we always struggle with this. So I know personally at work we see this a lot too. Emails are bouncing around with files attached, and everyone's trying to save off a different name of the file, but it just gets very confusing, especially throughout time with when did the changes start getting incorporated, and then there's the poor person who has to go in and compile all the changes, and it's a nightmare. So GitHub avoids all that and this whole workflow. It's wonderful. All right, so we're going to create a new branch. Right now, we look at branches. Actually, even right here, right? No branches, no other branches besides the one master. So we're going to go ahead and say, what do they ask us to call it? README edits. Boom. Okay, create branch, README edits. Awesome. All right, now look what's changed. It reloaded the page, and notice this now says branch README edits. If I go back to master, it looks exactly the same. It won't always. We're actually going to go back to this branch because this is right now my branch. I'm doing edits in this. So master is safe. All my edits are going to be stored in this branch, in this alternate but parallel time, right? Now it says this branch is even with master. So that means we're kind of at this point in time. There's no commits in master that are ahead of me, and there's no commits in my branch README edits that are ahead of master. So that's what this means, is even. It's really talking about in time. We do a compare. There's nothing to compare. They're identical, right? So let's go back here. All right, so now what does it want us to do? So we created the branch. Wonderful. All right, make and commit changes. So I briefly mentioned that this is a server-based, or maybe I didn't, but long story short, we are talking with the GitHub server or collection of servers via a web browser. The README file is unique because it's a text file. If I go into edit file, right, you can see it's just text files written in Markdown. I might be wrong about this, so trust but verify, but .md is Markdown. And Markdown has a key or where special characters mean certain things. So for example, pound signs are headers, so header number 2, right? And asterisks are bullet points. Let's do another one here. 2, if I do a tab and then the bullet point, it indents it to the next level. And is the point of this to teach you Markdown? No, it's just trying to explain what it is we're typing here. And if I go to preview, it'll just show what it translates the text file into the presented text, right? So it's not like Microsoft Word where you have to go into the toolbar and say, okay, I want this to be font so-and-so with the size of whatever, and it's all text-based. So anyway, so I've just made some changes to the text file, and the reason I can do this in the web browser is because it's simple text file. In future videos, we'll get into the difference of, hey, I have Arduino code on my local machine, and I want to make changes. So first I need to download the latest master or branch version from the server, GitHub, edit it on my machine, and then push my changes back up into the GitHub server, and then deal with all this in the GitHub web browser. So this is a very easy and simple demo. Just want to make that distinction. Okay, so I've made some changes, right? And now I want to commit those changes. I want to save my changes to the GitHub server. This is an important step. Don't skip this step. Because when you're reviewing changes in time, or let's say you have a team lead who's reviewing changes, you want to make life as easy as possible. And there's nothing like a memory failing of when did I make this change and why did I do it, or what is this change for, to throw a kink in your project when you're just starting to move along, right? So take the time to just do a quick comment at the very least, couple sentences or a couple bullet points or just a couple words to describe what the change is, and it'll help you in the long run if you're ever reviewing it, or if someone is, let's say you're out sick and someone's trying to do a pull request. It's just a good idea. So here in the gray text, they're just saying, suggested text. So I'm just going to follow that. Update README, so it's the file name. Added a few lines to demo markdown. All right, now what do these bullet points or these bubbles down here mean? So again, we see this line with a circle on it representing a commit. So we're already in the README edits branch. So I'm going to keep it here, but just to talk about this line, right? Create a new branch for this commit and start a pull request. So this would be, let's say you're doing a small minor change and you're kind of like a power user of GitHub. And you're looking at master and you see something wrong and you know it's a quick fix. So you can make your change directly in master per se, and then check this thing and say, okay, hey, create a new branch. It's a small fix. This is the only fix, and immediately start a pull request. When you get more familiar with GitHub, maybe you find yourself using this. But for now, we're going to follow the tutorial and just do commit directly to our little edit branch going on here. Commit the changes. Huzzah. Okay, so now we've got a difference, right? And if I go to raw, you can see, it's quite large, but you can see the code we were editing. But we're going to keep it in this nice rendered version, if you will. All right, so I'm in branch README edits. If I go back to master, you'll see our original code is preserved. We haven't affected our original master branch yet. To do that, we're going to want and do a pull request. We want to say, hey, team lead or admin, please merge the changes in this branch with the master branch. We think they're ready. All right. So we got the code. Issues we'll get into perhaps in a future video. If I just go into pull requests, it says, oh, hey, you just pushed. Pushed means, you committed changes. Maybe it's on your local machine and you pushed updates into the cloud, or in this case, we were already on the cloud editing it, but we committed changes. So here's the branch I was working. Okay, let's do a compare and pull request. So the base, the ground truth is master, and then here's the branch, and perhaps you're working on a few branches, but it's just this one. Yep, so these branches can be automatically merged. Usually that means the changes are, the algorithm in the background can readily compare the changes. So here you have a chance to add more to your comment. You can drag and drop files in. I think they even have emojis now, if you want to do that. Yeah, it's great. And I think you can also, it's probably in Markdown if you want to. Let's test that there really quick. Header. Yep. So if you get really good at writing your README files, this will be second nature. All right, so create a pull request. All right, so we are now in a pull request, right? Previously, we were in the code tab, right? 2 branches. Here I'm looking at master. Now we're in the pull request tab. This is a filter applied. I could get rid of it because I don't have that many pull requests going on. There's only the one. And if I go into it, think of this as kind of like a separate to-do list, right? Everything is now tracked with this pull request here. So I'm looking at commits. There was only the one commit we did, that one push. I just opened it up in a new tab here, right? And I can see which files were changed. Now for us, it's only the one. An update to README, added a few lines, and it shows the pluses and minuses, right? So all these lines from lines 3 through 7 were added. Let's say, look at this. I don't like something about this line of code. if I'm doing the review changes here, I can say, hey, I want to put a comment here. I don't like the pound sign in line 4. Oops. Start a review. Great. Now it's tracked directly on that line of code. So you don't have to say, keep switching back and forth between windows, trying to figure out what the line of code is. You can see it immediately in here. And it's also tracked in the, well, it should be tracked here. Oh, I have to click this. Yeah. So I'm reviewing the file. I put in a line of code here. I can say, yep, I'm done. Normally, if you're a different user than the person who submitted the pull request, this button would be enabled. So let's say you're the team lead and Mike is working on your team, and you're looking at some of his code. You're doing a review, and you've gone through all the files, and you say, okay, they're all here. Let's say his username is Mike. It won't be, so I'll call that myself here with an @ mention. So at D77, actually, I'll just call him Mike here. Please review and incorporate the changes. Submit review. Nice. Now, so that was in the pull request. That was in files changed, right? I was looking at the commit button there and following that workflow. But GitHub automatically pulled it into this long conversation tab. So here, top is the beginning of the pull request. You can see a commit, right, was made, and here's all the title and comments for that commit. That's why it's important to use those so you can make sense of this. And then, this is me reviewing it. Hey, @Mike, please review and incorporate the changes. Awesome. Smiley face, whatever. Readme.md, okay, and here it is. The comment on that line, right? Line number 4. I don't like the pound sign in line 4. Awesome. So I say, I don't know, you better. But I'll remove it. And then right here, right? You can add more commits to the README edits branch. So if I go into, let's say if I go back to code, right? Let's say now I'm Mike and I'm looking at my pull request. I'm seeing, okay, well, he's not going to, my boss or my team lead isn't going to pull it in just yet. I have to do something to it. I go back to my README edits branch. All right. Where is it? Here we are. All right. They wanted me to remove it. Number 2. And then let's say also removed a line here just so we can see it. Update per conversation. Pull request. Nice. Yep, same thing here. Commit the changes. Awesome. Go back to the pull request. Yep, this is outdated, right? Because I'd already did it. And here we see, yep, there's a new update, right? And so in this case, this was the first commit, right? And that was done. So we already did that review. Changes from one commit. Show all changes. So now we're into the second commit. You can see, hey, that's been changed, right? It's still a addition. That's why we've got the plus sign here, but we removed this line here. So that's why it's red. So if I click submit review, yep. Oh, I didn't even leave a comment. So nothing to really comment on here. So if I go back to the conversation, if I'm happy with it, right? And this can go back and forth for as many times as we want. Don't worry about this. This is more things GitHub can do, like auto checking code and stuff, but we don't need it for us, right? We're good. No conflicts with the base branch, right? So I can merge request. Merged, awesome. I totally skipped over some stuff here. All right, cool. Yep, now we're on merge. Yep, did it. Sweet. We can celebrate now. So you're all set. The README edits branch can be safely deleted. So this is different workflows. But in this case, the workflow they're embracing or recommending in this tutorial is you have a branch set up for each kind of effort that you put into it. And that way, when you start a new branch, you're starting with the latest and greatest code. So you're focusing on one thing in a branch, ideally, so that you get small, concise changes that are pretty easy to review and test. You merge them in, and then you delete the branch because it's no longer needed. Any other change, you would just create a new branch. All right, so if I go back to Hello World, let me close all these other tabs here. Go into branch. Look, I only got one branch, right? But I've got 4 commits. What are all the different commits going on? All right, there were updates to readmes, and they were pulled in. So that's the benefit of it right there, right? So if I go back to the code, now we see in master, all my changes are there, right? And we're good to go. So in future videos, we will look at repeating this process with GitHub Desktop, for example, for Arduino files, rather than just this simple README. But feel free to create an account on GitHub and then also explore a little bit. Actually, let me just search for a quick thing, Arduino. If I could spell Arduino. There we go. Sweet, there you go. So here, for example, this is a library for an ESP8266 chip, right? And you can see got a couple branches going on that people are working on. You got folders. It's a whole folder structure in there. We just had the single video, single file, the README, and that is in here. And we're looking at it right here. So that's the one file. And you can see it's got quite a lot more information in there. We can also, well, we can get into this in a later point in time. But the point is, you've got many different releases. They've got 370 contributors for you. Hopefully that's a smaller amount of people for your team, and you can manage really complex code. So if you're interested in it, feel free to create an account and start messing around with this with your team. All right, take care.